Hey everyone, Sadness here, and today I'm going to be telling you all I know about artifacts and egging. We are going to be covering what rockets and artifacts are, the strategies to get the best artifacts, including how to get legendary artifacts, and then we're going to go through a detailed explanation of every artifact and where it is useful. And then finally, we're going to talk about consuming and demoting artifacts for golden eggs. All of this is going to be in timestamps down below in the description, and so if you only want to hear a certain part of the spiel, go ahead and feel free to skip ahead. First off, let's talk about unlocking artifacts, because when you first start the game, you don't have access to them. There are two prerequisites to unlocking the artifacts. The first is that you have 100,000 soul eggs. Now, I have 2.8 sextillion soul eggs, so that is no problem for me. And then the second requirement is that your chickens are laying 100,000 rocket fuel eggs per minute. Once you have 100,000 soul eggs and also 100,000 rocket fuel eggs per minute, there will be a launch pad over here that pops up and some other amenities as well. The one with the rocket is the launch pad. The one with the multiple colors is the artifact hall. And then this is the fuel tank over here. So before getting too far into it, let's discuss why you might want to even invest in these rockets. And it's because the rockets give you back artifacts. Let's go ahead and collect one of these rockets that I've prepared. It takes forever to open them sometimes, but once you do open them, you'll find a whole treasure trove of objects in here, and they all have descriptions. Like this one says plus 100% soul egg collection rate. This is the in-game way of getting loot drops that can help your progress along in the game, and we'll go over all of them later. But this is the main portal where you launch and collect ships to get those artifacts. So let's go ahead and launch this Artigus Henliner. All of them are puns. We're going to go through them real quick. You have the Chicken 1, the Chicken 9, the Chicken Heavy, the BCR, the Quintillion Chicken, the Cornish Hen Corvette, the Galactica, the Defihent, the Voyager, the Henterprise, and the Artigus Henliner. Now on this menu, there's a few things to notice. The first thing is the fuel types. So this Chicken 1 says that it takes rocket eggs and only rocket fuel eggs. The Chicken 9 also only takes rocket fuel eggs, but then the Chicken Heavy takes rocket fuel eggs and fusion eggs. Then the BCR also takes superfood eggs. The Galactica now takes graviton eggs and antimatter eggs. And then after the Defihent is when you get to the main set, which is always going to be tachyon, dilithium, and antimatter, and then dark matter for the last two. Each of these ships costs money to send, so I don't even have enough money to ship the last two ships. The next thing to notice on this menu is the stars. You'll notice I have the max stars in every ship except for the Artigus Henliner because it's new. Basically, the stars increase the quantity and quality of the artifacts that you get when you launch that ship, and you get stars by launching those ships. I'm going for All Stars Club, which is why I have all of the stars except for in the last ship because I'm still making progress towards it. But there's actually no benefit to getting most of these stars, but we'll talk about strategies later. For now, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Artigus Henliner now that I can afford it and show you this menu, which shows you a short version, a standard version, and an extended version of every ship. So the short version here takes 4 trillion dilithium eggs, 4 trillion antimatter eggs, and 3 trillion dark matter eggs. It'll take 19 hours and 12 minutes to come back, and it carries 132 artifacts and has a quality of about 2/3. The standard will increase the quality and the duration up to 1 day 4 hours and the capacity up to 165. It also increases the costs by about 3/2. Then we get to the extended, and the extended adds a new fuel type, the tachyon egg for 2 trillion, and then it's 6 trillion for all the others, but then it increases the time to 1 day, 14 hours, and 189 capacity, and the quality goes up to like 4/5. The last thing to note on this menu is the select button in the top right corner. The select button brings up a menu of things that you can prioritize. Now we'll go through all of these artifacts in a little bit, but for now, I'm just going to click on this gussets because that's what I want to prioritize. And then I'm going to click buy and start fueling. Now it's going to start fueling. Now, you'll notice that I'm not actually on an egg that corresponds to any of these 4 eggs that we are fueling. If I was on one of those 4 eggs, then that egg would be fueled by the chickens in my habs. But because I'm not on one of those 4 eggs, it actually comes from my fuel tank instead. And you'll notice I have a lot of fuel for these missions. So I've got 39 trillion tachyon eggs, 192 trillion dilithium eggs, and all of these things are just in backup, waiting for me to want to put them into ships. My fuel tank can hold 500 trillion, but there's actually a bunch of different levels of fuel tanks, and you have to fully upgrade it using like 20 million GE or something in order to get it to the max level. So now let's take a brief look into the artifact hall And we're not going to go through each of them in depth, but I just want to show you the different things you can do in the artifact hall during this introduction. So let's go ahead and note that you can activate artifacts. So I already had a bunch activated. When you don't have any activated, there will be 2 or 4 empty slots depending on if you have the pro permit or not. And so what you can do is you can click on an empty slot and it'll bring up a menu of all of the different artifacts, and then you can just select the one you want to equip. Now, another thing that I can do is scroll through the menu and drag and drop them. So let's say I want to equip this one. I can drag and drop that up to here. Now you'll notice that the first one I equipped has a little triangle. That means that its effect isn't working. And you can click on the artifacts to bring up a detailed menu about them. So when I click up on this one, it says only works in a contract co-op. And so some artifacts won't work off of certain farms. Now there are 2 main types of artifacts. There's regular artifacts that are the ones I'm scrolling through. And then at the end of this list, sorry, it'll take me a moment to get there, there are the stones. The stones themselves aren't artifacts, but they are modifiers that can be placed on artifacts. All of these artifacts that are shiny can have a modifier placed in them. So let's click this one that we had before, and you'll notice that there's a little gem button here with a plus sign in it. I can click on that and I can go down and click on an artifact I want to put in there. And then I get a little added bonus. There are 3 levels of shininess. There's the rare shininess, the epic shininess, and the legendary shininess. And you can see those 3 qualities in my cubes here. Here is the common, then there's the rare cube, then there's the epic cube, and then finally I have the legendary cube. Often it'll go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 slots for each of those rarities, but some legendary artifacts can only hold 2 slots, and some epic artifacts like this one can only hold 1 slot. Each artifact has 4 tiers, which we can see by looking at these books here. So this is the tier 1 book of basin. As you can see, it has a smaller benefit than the tier 2 book of basin. Then there's the tier 3 book of basin, and finally the tier 4 book of basin. Tier 1 artifacts never have shiny variants. Tier 2 artifacts sometimes have shiny variants, tier 3s almost always have shiny variants, and tier 4 always has a shiny variant. The legendary quality, however, can only exist on a tier 4 artifact except for the Ankh, which has a tier 3 legendary artifact that you can see right here. The last thing to note about the 4 tiers of artifacts is that you can craft from one tier to the next. So when I clicked on the tier 1 book of basin, you'll notice that it said that I could craft a tier 2 book of basin at the bottom here using 6 tier 1 books of basin and 4 of these gold nuggets, solid gold meteorites. It'll cost me 31,000 golden eggs, which is not cheap. There is also a button up in the top left here which has a recycle sign. If we go to one of the shiny artifacts, when you click on it, there will be 2 buttons. There will be next to the rarity, a minus button that says demote artifact. When you demote the artifact, you get some golden eggs back. Also, you can go ahead and consume the artifact, which will instead give you stones. That one gave me 2 prophecy stones and 3 of some other stone. It actually gave me fragments, but fragments are just baby stones. You'll see down here, this says lunar stone fragment, but then it just upgrades to a lunar stone, which upgrades to a exquisite lunar stone, and then finally the magnificent lunar stone. So you can either look at stones as having 3 tiers plus a baby fragment tier, or you can just call it the 4-tier system, just like artifacts. This menu is also sorted in terms of rarity. So the left-hand side usually shows the more rare things, and then as you scroll to the right, you get to the more common things. And you'll notice that I have a legendary artifact for every single one past the most uncommon ones. So there's like the 7 hardest ones to get I don't have, but I have every single other legendary artifact, which is pretty cool. One final tip and trick is that if you ever find loadouts that you really like, you can save them into this artifact set configuration. So I have a bunch of different sets for contracts here, and like basically this is just increasing from all tachyon stones to all quantum stones. And then here's my prestige set. I have a enlightenment set. One more thing to note is that in the crafting menu, it'll show you the different types of rarities that you can get. So this one can craft into a common, epic, or legendary. This one right here can only craft into a common because it has no dots there. If I click on this artifact, you'll see that it has a blue for rare. So this one can only craft into common or rare. So now that we've gone through a brief overview of all of the artifacts and rockets, let's talk about some strategies to get the best artifacts as fast as possible. The main thing that you're going to do is you're going to try and speedrun getting to the Articus Henliner. When you first start out, you don't have all of the ships unlocked. You only have the chicken one, and these will all say undiscovered. But then as you send more and more ships of your highest quality ship, you will get to unlock the later ships. So what you're going to want to do is always send the shortest duration of each ship. And this is just because it comes back faster, which means that you can send another one faster, which means that you can unlock the next ship faster. Don't worry about getting stars while you're unlocking ships. Only do that after if you want to have some fun. Also, while you are unlocking all of these ships, don't craft anything. There's no reason to spend your golden eggs crafting on most of the artifacts. After you've unlocked the Artigas Headliner, you're going to get all of like the tier 4s for pretty much every artifact except for the Book of the Basin and the Ship in the Bottle and the Tachyon Deflector. You can get a Ship in the Bottle if you get really, really lucky, but it like never happens unless you're targeting them. But even then, it's extremely rare. So basically, you can get the even tier 4 legendary artifacts from ship drops on the Artigas Headliner for pretty much every artifact. So past feathers, basically. Everything else is fairly common to drop after you've played the game for like 3 years. You're expected to probably get about one of each of the ones past here. But after you've been playing for many, many months and you have every single artifact, you might find yourself start slowing down in progress. And that is when you can start crafting to actually fill out your entry list and get the artifacts that you're missing that you really want. And so now I'm going to show you a clip of how I got the tier 4 legendary totem, because even though I had every single artifact from past feathers to the cube, I still hadn't gotten the tier 4 legendary totem, which boosts your away earnings, and I really wanted one. And so I went and I crafted one. And you'll see it takes like 4 million golden eggs for me to do this process. And so it's not very good. Now, one thing I forgot to mention before is that there's a current crafting level. So I'm level 22, and you get higher chances to get legendary artifacts in a few ways. One of them is by just crafting that specific artifact. So every time that I crafted a tier 4 totem, I had a higher chance of getting a tier 4 legendary totem. And then on top of that, every time I crafted, I also got experience points, which increased my crafting level, which also increases the chances of you getting rarer artifacts. So this says that I have a 3.5x increase in chance to craft rare, epic, or legendary artifacts. And it's the only reason why I was even able to afford getting tier 4 legendary totem. Now, I do recommend only crafting your artifacts on the 30% off day event. There is an event that comes once every 3 weeks. It's like one of these events, and it says 30% off crafting. So next I'm going to go through a detailed explanation of every single stone and every single artifact and explain kind of what is their purpose and when they are used. So starting with the stones. Okay, here we have the Prophecy Stone. The Prophecy Stone increases your Egg of Prophecy bonus, and every single Egg of Prophecy gives you a 10% base increase, but as you can see, the tier 4 one gives you 0.15% extra, so it'll be 10.15%, I think is how it works. But either way, the Egg of Prophecy is just extremely good, especially when you have over 200 of them like I do. And so this is the main artifact that people use for prestiging because of the fact that it increases your earnings by so much. Next up is the Clarity Stone. I've never actually crafted one of the tier 4 Clarity Stones before, so that's why this is in blue. Blue is like a blueprint. It's like, oh, you've discovered this, but you haven't crafted it. So the Clarity Stones are an enlightenment only artifact, and basically artifacts by default have 0 effect on enlightenment unless you add the Clarity Stones like I did for these. Right now they all have warnings on them because I'm not on enlightenment, so it says it's not compatible, but basically each of these stones will make it so that this artifact works on enlightenment. They're a 50%, so having two 50% means that this unsolvable puzzle cube will have 100% of its normal effect on enlightenment. So that means that I'll get minus 55% research cost. If I only had one of them equipped on enlightenment, then I would have 50% of the total effect. So it would be a 27.5% research cost instead. Next up is the Dilithium Stone. The Dilithium Stone increases the duration of your boosts. So it's used pretty much whenever you're boosting, which is when you're boosting for contracts and also when you're boosting for soul eggs during a prestige session. Then we have the Life Stone, which increases your internal hatchery rate. So it's good for when you are trying to get to high total chicken count. Next up is the Quantum Stone, which increases your shipping rate, which is most useful on contracts when you're just trying to ship as much as possible. Then we have the Soul Stone, stone, which gives you a bonus per soul egg. So basically this is useful when you don't have a lot of PE yet, because then your soul eggs will be doing most of the work, not your prophecy eggs. And so people will use this to prestige instead of their prophecy eggs. Next is the exceptional terror stone, which increases max running chicken bonus by 100. If you don't know, the max running chicken bonus is if I hold the red button, I get a little number that pops up in the top left, and it's basically just a constant multiplier depending on how many chickens are on the screen at one time. So this will increase that bonus by 100. That's really good. So for people who have a lower EB without as many soul eggs and without as many prophecy eggs, often the best thing to use is the terror stones. So that's when those are used. Then we have the lunar stones, which increase your away earnings by 40%, and those are good for lunar stages. I've never done a lunar stage before, but a lunar stage is a prestige where you get all of your soul eggs by not playing the game. And so I'm going to be testing that out on Friday, so stay tuned if you want to see that. Next up, we have the tachyon stone, which is also useful for contracts. It increases the egg laying rate, and the tachyon stone in combination with the quantum stone can give you insanely high maximum egg laying rates on contracts. Next up, we have the flawless shell stone, which increases your egg value by 10%. This is never used. It is completely useless pretty much. Only at the lowest EBs and when you don't own terra stones yet is this more valuable than anything else. Yeah, it's pretty much not used. So next up, we have not really stones. These are actually ingredients and they don't have any effect and they're only used for crafting other things. So we have the titanium line, and then there's the geode line, and finally the gold line. Now, these three lines of ingredients are not equally valuable. The titanium is usually used for funner crafts that don't have as much purpose. The geode is used for I feel like it's auxiliary contract related things often use the geodes. And then mainline game mechanic things always use the gold meteorites. So things that increase the amount of chickens you can have in your habitats for the trophies, and then also things that increase the price of your eggs, those all take gold meteorites, which is so awful that there's such a disparity and that these three ingredients are not more equally distributed. Moving on from the stones and ingredients, we have the cube. Now, the cube is mainly used on low value egg contract farms because what it does is it decreases the cost of research, which is the bottom left tab on the screen where you upgrade your farm. Outside of that, it's not really useful because it doesn't boost your egg value. It just makes it easier to maximize your farm. Once you're in the late game, maximizing your farm on your base farm and non-contract farms is really easy. Next up is the exceptional lunar totem, which is used in lunar stages. The fun thing about the tier 4 legendary lunar totem is that it didn't exist until 3 months ago, and we always joked that the tier 3 legendary Ankh took away the legendary status of the totem because the totem was so useless. But then after the developer added the tier 4 legendary totem, it made lunar staging, which was before a meme, actually a somewhat viable strategy, but I've never done one before. I'm really excited to see just how viable they are, but it increases the amount of Vox you earn while you're away. Next up is the artifact that is usually the first legendary artifact people get, which is the necklace, Demeter's necklace. It just straight up increases the value of your egg, and you can tell by the fact that I have the eggs of prophecy in it that this is part of the main prestige set that people use in the game, and it's because it increases the egg value by 200%. You know, that's just a big old increase, and so people love to use that artifact. Next up, we have the vial. The vial of Martian dust will increase your max running chicken bonus by 500 at the max level, and this is often used for prestige sets or just for earning sets where you're trying to earn as much money but not necessarily earn as much soul eggs. But it's even used in prestige sets before things like the Book of Basin are unlocked. After a while, it becomes useless. Next up, we have the Ankh, which is also a member like the Demeter's necklace of the main prestige set. So the tier 4 legendary gives you a 150% egg value boost, which is not as much as the necklace, but it is so much rarer than the necklace that people think that this is the better artifact. I only recently got my tier 4 legendary, which is why I have my stones in the tier 3 right now. But let's go ahead and move those over. And I'll show you how expensive it is to actually move stones. I hope I can afford it, honestly. I have 1.56 million right now. So if I press the add button, it'll bring up a menu where I can add stones. It costs 113,000 to set the stones, which is just insane. But this is the right choice to move them all. And now I have a new prestige artifact. Moving on is the Gusset, which is the only thing out of the rarest artifacts that I don't have the legendary of. So I'll show on the screen what it does because I don't know. And they increase your hab capacity by 22%. So the Gusset is one of the most important artifacts in the game for trophy hunting because increasing your hab capacity just makes it so much easier to max out your habs and get that 10 billion goal for the diamond trophy. After you've already done every single trophy though, it becomes a contract artifact, and that's why I have the tachyon stones and the quantum stones embedded in it, because having more chickens means that you lay more eggs, which is good for contracts where the only goal is to lay as many eggs as possible as fast as possible. I hope that the tutorial I gave yesterday was helpful in displaying that. Next up, we have the lens. The Magnificent Mercury's lens increases your farm valuation by 200%. This does nothing. In the early game, it can get you from the only place that in the game that farm valuation is used is to see if you've unlocked the next egg. So you see in the top left corner, I'm like 1/4 of the way to the next egg. So if I equipped this, that bar should go up. So let's go ahead and equip it real quick. I'm going to deactivate my puzzle and equip this and see the bar. Yep, the bar jumped up. Next up, we have the butterfly, or the Aurelian brooch, as it is called. And this increases your drone rewards by 200%. And so what you'll often do is you'll get this, like the set that I have up here at the top. You'll get an Aurelian brooch that has 3 clarity stones in it, and you'll go to Enlightenment Farm, because then you can get, well, in this case it would be 150, which would be 300%, and so that's a really good way of farming gold. But yeah, just know that the Aurelian brooch is mainly used for farming golden eggs. After, we get to the toilet seat, which I don't know the name of. It is the Neodymium Medallion, but I call it the toilet seat. The reason why is because you'll see I have so many legendaries, and like they're useless. They do nothing. I have one that I put my boost duration boosts in, and the other one that I put my clarity stones in for enlightenment farming. And this is because they increase the drone frequency. So with the butterfly, I get 4 times increase in the amount of golden eggs. And then with this, I will get 130% drone frequency. So about 2.5 times as frequently they will come. And so then I get 2.5 times 4. So that's going to be like a 10 total times the amount of income that I can get from drone farming. So yeah, those 2 artifacts are mainly used for holding stones and also for farming drones. Next up, we have the last piece of the puzzle for GE farming. It is the Glistening Beak of Midas. It says gold gifts and drone rewards guaranteed. You don't even need that though. All you need is the tier 4 rare Glistening Beak of Midas with a single blue clarity stone in it, and you will already have a guaranteed chance of drones dropping golden eggs on the enlightenment farm. So these 3 together make the perfect golden egg farming set. You go to the enlightenment farm and every single drone is guaranteed to drop golden eggs. So that is like the free to play way of getting golden eggs, is to get these 3 artifacts and then just spam clicking on drones on enlightenment, and you get like a lot of golden eggs. And there's an event where you get a 4x boost in all drone drops, or sometimes even a 5x boost in all drone drops. And on those days, I've heard of people getting like more than 10 million golden eggs in a single day. The counterpart to the beak is the carved rain stick, which increases the chance of cash in gifts and drones instead of golden eggs in gifts and drones. So useless. Nobody ever needs cash in their gifts and drones, except for sometimes on enlightenment. But even then, if you have one of these to put a clarity stone in, you're probably so far into the late game that it's not useful, because you'll notice I don't have any rarities on any of the other ones, and it's because no rarities exist. The only ones that exist are the tier 4 rare ones, or the tier 4 epic ones. So moving on from the rain stick, we have the compass. This is another contract artifact. What it does is increases the shipping rate, which doesn't do anything on a normal farm, but on a contract farm where the goal is just to ship as many eggs as possible, this is really good. So I like to put my quantum stones in my interstellar compass, and this one gives me a 50% shipping rate increase, which means I can ship 1.5 times as many eggs. Next up, we have the chalice. The chalice increases your internal hatchery rate, making it the most important artifact for boosting. Whenever you're boosting, you're usually trying to increase the amount of chickens in your hab, whether that's on contracts or even during prestiges. There's like a special type of prestige called an IHR prestige, internal hatchery rate prestige, if you will, that uses these extensively. And so yeah, this artifact's mainly for boosting your chicken population. Next up, we have one of the best artifacts in the game, which is the feather. I don't have a legendary feather because now we're starting to get to the more rare artifacts. This gives you a 12x soul egg collection rate. So the feather doesn't boost your income, but it makes the amount of soul eggs you get per prestige go up immensely. And so people like to use this during every prestige, basically. Next up, we have the quantum metronome, which increases your egg laying rate, making it another contract artifact. I like to have a little diverse set of these. So I have one with 2 tachyons and one with 1 quantum and 1 tachyon. And that just means that I have more flexibility on contracts. Next up, we have a really good artifact, the dilithium monocle. This is a boost artifact, and you'll notice I have the IHR stones in it. Unfortunately, the boost does not outweigh the impact of the other prestige artifacts, but it is really good for when you're trying to increase your population because it increases the impact of every boost you use by 25%. Next up, we have the most useless artifact in the game, and I have no idea why it's all the way to the left over here. Like, what were they doing putting it at this high of the rarity? It's the titanium actuator, and it increases your hold to hatch rate, which is the rate at which chickens come out when you press the red button. It's not used for anything. Literally, it's not used for anything except to maybe lag your game if you're trying to make a lag switch. Next, we have another contract artifact, which is the ship in a bottle, which increases your co-op's teammates' earnings by 70%. This is only used at the start of co-op when people are building up their farm. I don't even equip it at all because all of the people in my co-ops are high enough earnings bonus that they don't need it. So this is a pretty useless artifact, unlike the next co-op only one or contract only one, which increases the teammate's egg laying rate. And this is the tachyon deflector. And I don't use this tier 4 one. I use the tier 3 rare one because of the fact that it lets me also get a egg laying rate stone in or a shipping rate stone in. Next up is the Book of Basin, which increases your egg of prophecy bonus. So combining the Book of Basin with the prophecy stones, they're basically the same artifact, except the Book of Basin has a plus 1% instead of a plus 0.1%. And so the Book of Basin is just so much more powerful. And it's the only common artifact that I have in my prestige set. And that's just how powerful that plus 1% to Egg of Prophecy bonus is. Next up, we have an enlightenment only artifact, which is the Brilliant Light of Eggendil. Enlightenment egg value increased by 100x. Now, the enlightenment egg is worth 1 over 2.5 million, the value of the edible egg, I think. 1 over 2.5 million is a very, very big margin, but increasing that 100x makes it 1 over 25,000. And 25,000 is not that big in this game. And so because of that, this thing's insane. And also it's the only artifact that doesn't require clarity stones to work on enlightenment. It's also a crafting ingredient in making the best artifact in the game, which is the Book of Basin. So, you know, crafting those is pretty good. Anyways, that is all of the artifacts in the game. That took a while to get through. And so we already talked about GE farming using these artifacts, but there's also another way to GE farm, which I alluded to earlier when I said that you can demote and consume artifacts. I'm gonna go through right now. Take a look. I'm at 1.22 million GE. I'm gonna go through and demote all of my extra shiny artifacts that I don't need. And one thing I didn't show you earlier is that you can actually go and click on the demote button and then hold either the consume or the rarity button. Whoopsies. And it'll show you how many would you like to demote. I went from 1.22 million to 1.27 million by demoting all of those artifacts. And so I'm going to go through and demote all of my extra artifacts that I don't need, and I will show you the results. Okay, that took literally forever, but I went from 1.22 million GE to 2.77 million GE, which is quite a good increase. Oh, I missed some. To 2.78 million GE. And my inbox is looking a lot more cleared up. All I did was demote the rare quality ones because I like to keep the purple ones around, and that's what you'll see in my thumbnail. So that is one way of earning golden eggs from artifacts, is to demote all of your rare artifacts that you don't need. Another way is to consume fragments. Consuming regular artifacts gives you fragments, but consuming fragments themselves will also give you golden eggs. But it goes into your piggy bank instead of into your main inventory. So if I consume this guy, okay, so consuming the higher level ones does give you GE. Consuming fragments gives you piggy fill, Consuming stones gives you GE, and demoting shinies gives you GE as well. And wow, my inbox is so much more manageable now. I'm so happy that we did that. That is everything that I wanted to cover in today's video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that this tutorial on artifacts was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm sure I'm forgetting about something, or maybe something I said was unclear. Either way, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, everybody.